Kia ora, welcome to Under the Checkered Flag, MotoGP edition. I'm your host Kate, and we're just going to jump right in. It is Kate, Kelly and PozzA back for another podcast. This week we're going to start with more silly season rumours, speculation. The first one we're going to cover off is apparently, allegedly, Joan Mir has decided to stay at Honda. So it sounds like nothing is signed yet, no deal's been struck, but he is intending to stay. And this has sort of blown my mind because it's so clear that Joan Mir is not happy at Honda, and I wanted to grab your guys' thoughts.
As unhappy as I think he is, I didn't see him having any other valid options to go to. If you ask anyone, nobody wants him to stay at Honda yet. If you ask them where else would he go, it's like they don't know. So inevitable, but it's not the result that I wanted. I want to see him get a better bike. So I feel like even though it looks like he's just lost his faith in the sport itself, I feel like he just still has that little bit left in him, and I'd love to see him be able to perform with it. But if he stays with Honda, then we won't be able to see it. I don't see him going to like any of the big teams like Gresini or that. I don't see them. It's not a case of him having no interest in them. I see them having no interest in him. I feel like I just feel like they'd have no interest in him, and any of the lower teams I feel like are kind of set in other Moto2 riders. So Honda might have just been his only option, and that's my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like, personally, I feel like he's probably decided that he still wants to stay in MotoGP, but he probably hasn't gotten any other options from any other teams, because I feel like Grassini's the main one. I feel like they'll be waiting for the whole Pramac situation to sort itself out, because they could get Fermin Aldeguer for next year if Pramac do end up jumping over to Yamaha. So I feel like Grassini will be trying to keep their options open and wouldn't have offered Mir at this stage. So I feel like Honda's his only real option currently if he wants to stay in the sport.
That's actually a super valid point that I suppose I hadn't considered, is the whole Pramac situation, because I easily would have thought that Grassini would be interested because Mir's just an incredible talent. But if they've already locked in, say, Alex Marquez still, they may be forced to take Fermin Aldeguer. He signed with Ducati, so they'll place him in whatever satellite team. A different rumor that has been sprouting is one that seems to crop up every single year, and that is Toprak Razgatlıoğlu moving to MotoGP or hoping to. So he does have a contract with BMW for the 2025 season over in World Superbikes, but his manager Keenan has just recently come out saying that they'd like to move to MotoGP and they'd be willing to break that contract if possible. So I love Toprak. I think he's a really great talent, but I'm also not really sure where he'd slot into the MotoGP grid. We know he's got some ties to Yamaha, as he's tested for them in the past, and maybe if Pramac do make that shift, that could be where he goes. PozzA, I know that you're obviously a big Toprak fan. What are your thoughts?
I really hope Toprak can find a seat next year. I feel like waiting for 2027 when BMW are rumoured to come in might not be the best decision just because he'll be 30 at that stage. And it does sort of feel like he's better than he's ever been at this current moment. And winning the Superbike title on a BMW would sort of back that up. Something that I've seen recently is before Mugello in the fantasy preview Deniz Oncu did. He said he's been pushing Toprak to try and jump over to the GP paddock with him as well. And obviously, if Kenan Sofuoglu's trying to push him as well, he'll have as much money and backing as he needs, really, to get it to go through. So I'm hopeful that we can see Toprak on the grid next year. I'd love to see it personally.
Obviously, I'd be a little less into Superbike than both of you do, but when I do watch it, I would actually be watching Toprak. I feel like, as Pod said, he is an amazing talent, and I could see him as a possibility for MotoGP. Do I think he's going to end up there? No. But I believe I did read a little thing saying that BMW believes if they do have a good stint in Superbike this year, that they would really consider joining MotoGP. And I feel like if that's the case, then Toprak could kind of just slide in that way. But I don't. In my head, it's a possibility. But then again, the other side of my head is saying no, it's not going to happen. And honestly, I don't think I want it to happen. Weirdly enough, I like to see more of the Moto2 riders in there than any Superbike. But yeah, I know it's gonna sound awful. I really know it's gonna sound awful, but I prefer him to stay in Superbike. Weirdly enough, I like having him as a talent there. But if and I just don't think it's a possibility for him to make it to MotoGP. But if he does, then fair play to him.
One thing you mentioned does sort of, I do agree with, in the fact that World Superbikes deserves Toprak, just his personality, his charismatic attitude, and the pure talent he is. World Superbikes do deserve those kind of characters, and they may, if rumours are to be believed, be getting Jack Miller in sort of like not a replacement, but Jack Miller does look to be heading that way. That championship does deserve its characters as well. But something Poz said is the fact that Deniz Oncu encouraged Toprak to get into the GP grid. We do just want to give a quick update on him because he has now been confirmed as sitting out to recover from injury from both the Dutch GP and the German GP because he has a fracture of his forearm and also in his hand. So a speedy recovery from all of us to Dennis, and we hope to see him back at the British Grand Prix in full health. The final, I suppose, silly season rumour I would like to ask you both about is what could possibly be confirmed by the time this podcast goes live, and that is allegedly, and I'm saying allegedly because it has not been confirmed, it's basically just Sky Italy and Crash.net reporting it, and that is the fact that Marco Bezzecchi sounds like he is going to be going to Aprilia. I, for one, am still firmly in denial and in camp Fabio Di Giannantonio. But how about you guys?
Yes, please, absolutely. I've really, really wanted this. I know his performances this season have been inconsistent is probably a nice word to put it. I've really wanted him to switch from VR46 as much as he has really good ties there. I wanted to see him on a different bike because I do feel like even just considering last year, he has had that like fire in him, and I want to see it come out. I know I would also like to see Fabio Di Giannantonio on it, but obviously for me it would be Marco, I think, who deserves it more, and I feel like it's even though it's just rumors, I still feel like it might actually happen. It's even like before I seen little bits about that before, so I feel like it's been a rumor for a long time, and I'd love to see it come to reality.
Yeah, I think either way, if Aprilia did pick Bezzecchi or Di Giannantonio, next year's lineup would still be really exciting for them. But I feel like with Bezzecchi and Martin obviously having fought for titles against each other in the past in Moto 3, I feel like it could bring a good sort of teammate dynamic where they're both trying to push as hard as they can to get one over on each other. And yeah, I think it could be exciting for next year. I do think Bezzecchi will get it now, just with obviously all the rumours.
Well, with all the rumours, I think you're both probably right in the fact he'll get the seat, but I still think you're both wrong in the fact that he should get that seat over Digia, mainly because this change that Digi has had to make into a brand new team and into a bike that has sort of like this different braking zone. Personally, I just think that he deserves the ride more. I may just be surviving on copium here.
I think it is copium because I know Fabio has definitely increased his performances this last year, but like a little bit more mid than Marco was. Like Marco at like from start to mid of the year and even parts of the end of the year was on it. And then Fabio was kind of like building it up, got a couple of podiums at the end of the year, and now he's like pretty much just as mid as Marco is. So as much as it looks like it, Marco I feel like has been the better one. So I think it might just be a bit of copium there.
We will just agree to disagree. And before we start an argument, let's move on to the prediction recap. So, when we last did our prediction recap, PozzA in last place, me a smidge above PozzA, Kelly in first place. Things have completely changed, but PozzA is now leading the championship. So he is on 123 points. Kelly is on 120 points. I'm on 116.5 points. So that's a bit unfortunate for myself. But either way, PozzA's now leading with a gap of 3. I'm, behind him, but it's still very much in contention, and one weekend could change it all. A quick recap into the numbering system is that if we guess a rider in P1 in the Grand Prix, it's 15 points, P2, 10 points, P3, 5 points, right rider, wrong place, we get 1 point. It's also half of that for the sprint, so it definitely is all still to play for. So looking ahead to Assen, I'm just going to start with my Moto3 predictions, and in P3, I've got Colin Vire. I think he is going to have a bit of a home field advantage, but I think he's going to be beaten by David Alonso in P2 because he's just such a strong performer here. But I think Ivan Ortola's actually going to take the cake because he's always strong here, and I just think he's going to come back a little bit hungrier, wanting to keep himself in that championship fight. I think he's going to take the top spot, and my reserve is Nepa. Kelly, how about you?
Okay, so I have actually made a shocking, sad, depressing. I might just burst into tears after this recording. I have not gone with Colin Vire. I've not gone with Colin Vire. Can you imagine? It's a shocking moment. I'm going to burst into tears. Uh, Colin, I'm sorry. So for Moto3, I've gone with David Alonso, Colin Vire, Danny Holgado in third, and as my reserve, I have Ortola. Oh my god. I feel like one of you is gonna put Colin first now that I have not done that because apparently the Kelly curse or whatever.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, can I change mine up now? Can I slide Colin Vire into first?
This isn't fair. Watch him actually win now. That's
Oh, come on.
just my luck.
It would be incredibly funny.
It would not be. I'd actually cry.
Nah, because then we would have unlocked the real potential of the Kelly curse, and you'd just have to put him P2 for the rest of the year to get him to win the championship.
Stop. That would actually make me cry. I would not be able to handle that.
Anyway, moving on to my predictions. I've gone kind of similar to what I've done for the rest of the year. In P3, I've put Colin Vire on for a home podium. In P2, I feel like we'll see Jose Antonio Rueda back on the podium, just given the fact that now he's had a bit of a break to build up a bit more of the fitness. And winning, it's so hard to go against him currently, but I've gone David Alonso in first. He just seems to be the quickest rider on every track we've gone to so far this year. And as my reserve, I've put Danny Holgado just purely based on the fact that this is sort of where his title charge faded last year. he qualified nearly last and crashed out on the first lap. So he's just sort of a backup in case someone else gets injured. Moving on to Moto 2, I've gone with Sergio Garcia, championship leader in P3. Not much else there, just he's looked consistent all year, so I feel like he'll be up there. In second, I've gone with Aaron Canet. Nothing like personal there with the fact that he's second a lot. I just feel like he won't have enough to win, but I feel like he'll be up there. And as my winner, I've gone with Ayagura. Just he's always looked competitive around Assen. He nearly won last year, got overtaken on the last lap by Jake Dixon. So I feel like he'll be up there and he'll be wanting to win. And as my reserve, I have gone Jake Dixon just because, again, it's another track where he's normally pretty good at.
Okay, so following on from Moto3, I may have made a small adjustment because at this point I feel bad. He's still on the podium. He's still on the podium. I can't let him fully go yet, but I have removed from my from my leader. I feel like Kate and PozzA are going silently mental at the minute. This is just because I feel like I curse them every weekend. If they win, I'm putting them back on my first. But now they are going to put Furman as their first. So if he crashes out, then it's their fault. It's not mine, and everyone lied. Anyway, to stop my app, I am going to keep continuing on. So in first, I put Sergio Garcia. I feel like he's just had a pretty consistent season and is doing quite well. Not unstoppable, but doing decently well. Second, I have Ayagura because, as Paz said, he's been decently good around this track. Was on track for a win as well. He's been very on form recently, very fast, and I'd love to see him perform a bit better. So I have him in second. In third, I have Furman Aldeguer because I refuse to completely remove him from the podium, just like I did with Fire. I want to see him get something. So, and then my reserve, I think for the first time, I have Jake Dixon. He's pretty good around this track, and I wanted to switch it up a little bit.
I admit, PozzA and I had planned to make you go first for Moto 2. I completely forgot that fact when I asked you to go for Moto 3 first, so I'm really sorry, PozzA. But based on Kelly's predictions, I have now changed mine up. So in P3, I'm going for Joe Roberts just because he's on his strong form. I had Ayagura in P1, but I've dropped into P2 because now for P1, I've gone for Furman Aldeguer because I truly believe in the Kelly cursing Furman Aldeguer. I'm sorry, PozzA. I do want to back Agura. I really, really do, but I just feel like I believe in the Kelly curse more than I believe in Agura's qualifying pace. So, we'll see how we go. For my reserve, I have gone for Sergio Garcia. I think it's not his best track from memory, but yeah, I just think Robert Segura and Furman are going to have something more, and so we'll just, see what transpires. Moving on to the sprint, for my reserve, who I'll say first, is Pekka Bagnaia. I know he's so strong at this track, but I think the others are going to have a little bit more determination than him. In P3, I put Pedro Acosta. I did debate putting him in P1, but I think based on his performances last year, Brad Binder's actually going to come out as the top KTM this week. And I think Jorge Martin's just going to be Jorge Martin and clinch that sprint win. So, PozzA, what do you think?
I've based mine all on last year, pretty much. Starting from third, I've got Marc Marquez. This is probably the one that is least based on last year. He just looks strong, and I feel like I can sort of justify it by just saying he's Marc Marquez. He'll always be up there. In second, I've gone for Marco Bezzecchi just because he won the sprint last year, came second in the race, and he got his first win in MotoGP at this track the year before. So I feel like he'll be up there just because it's one of his best tracks. And surprising no one, for sprint win, I've gotten Jorge Martin just because I feel like it's a really easy prediction. And as my reserve, I've also gone Pecco Bagnaia just because I feel like he's normally better in the main races, not the sprints. So that's just a little bit of backup.
So I actually have kind of done the same thing with pause for Pekka Bagnaia, which is weird. But so obviously for first I have guess who? Our favorite sprint merchant for Jorge Martin. I don't think I have changed this at all since the season started, and I don't think I will. But yeah, he's there first. Um, for a second, I think I have him here always as well, Mark Marquez, because I I just hold faith that he'll get a second. Um, for third, I have Vinay Bastianini because he actually has come back on form a good bit, I feel like. And I've taken Pedro off the sprint podium, but I feel like he'll still be close to a podium or get one, so don't worry about that. And then for my reserve, I have Pekka Bagnaia because, as I said before, obviously he performs a bit better in like a feature race than he does in a sprint. And talking about feature races, moving straight on to that, I have Pekka Bagnaia in P1 for the race. I have Marc Marquez in P2. Obviously, I don't. That hasn't really changed a lot. And then in P3, I have Pedro Acosta because I still hold faith that he will get a podium. And then as my reserve, I have Vinaya Bastianini because, like I said, he's still very on form, and I think he can get some valid points.
The four riders that I've picked for the main race are Jorge Martin to finish on the podium in third, picking up some more good points for the championship. Marco Bezzecchi in second, again, just because this is probably historically his best track. And staying with sort of theme that I've gone with for this year, I've got Pecco Bagnaia to win the main race just because he seems better in the sort of full length Grand Prix than he does in the sprints. And as my reserve, I've gone Marc Marquez just because he's always going to be up there realistically.
The fact that the two of you have put the same rider in the sprint and the Grand Prix as, like, you know, finishing P2. I have not done this. And for P3, I've gone someone a little bit different in Alicia Spargaro. He's reasonably good at this track. I just think those flowing corners are going to be quite helpful towards the Aprilia. I just think he's going to be up there. In P2, I put Pedro Acosta, and in P1, like both of you, I've gone for Pecco Bagnaia. So the Grand Prix and the sprint P1 is up for contention because if the Kelly curse isn't real, the podcast curse might be because, you know, we've picked the same riders for P1 in the Grand Prix and the sprint, so it could be an absolute disaster. My reserve for the main race is Jorge Martin. So, yeah, we'll just see how it plays out. Before we log off for the week, we would like to say a massive shout out to our regular listeners. Two that I just want to, you know, appreciate are Andrew, who frequently comments, and also Tom from the Discord server. So thank you. We really appreciate you listening and coming back. If you're enjoying our content, like and subscribe, and we will be here after Assen to review the racing and to preview the Saxon Ring.